Hi, I'm Simon K. Jones, and you're listening to the audiobook version of Tales from the Triverse. This is Best Laid Plans, Part 3. Previously, on Brulia, the insurgents are fighting through the city. In London, protests rage towards Westminster, while former detective Nisha Chakraborty hunts for evidence. The garrison, Brulia, 3208, Bright Sun. The Akehu had broken through, the reinforcements from Mid-Earth having never arrived. Gina led a contingent of city guards into the courtyard, taking up positions along the recessed paths, finding cover behind pillars and training equipment. If this was where they made their final stand, so be it. Wrexham may have been right about Chancellor Baltine, but that wouldn't help any of the guards in the garrison. To the Akehu, they were the enemy. The doors to the war room opened and Wrexham strode out, confident, seemingly unconcerned for his own safety. The Akehu would be coming through the gates at any moment. She waved to him. "Captain, take cover!" He stood in the centre of the courtyard, one hand on the hilt of his sword, which remained sheathed. "Wrong, Gina," he said. "They are already here." He raised his chin, and she followed his gaze. Atop the roof of the garrison, surrounding them on all sides, stood armed figures, silhouetted against the bright sky. She could make out archers, arrows ready to fly, and wielders with spells already cast. There was a flash of movement, and a Maolain Fa jumped to the ground, a short blade in hand. Before Gina could react, they had closed the distance to Wrexham. The captain was ready, his sword already out of its scabbard and swinging up to deflect the attack. Hidden in the shadows of the courtyard's covered walkways, Gina began manifesting a fireball. It took her longer to execute spells since the massacre in Tapu, and she'd only get one shot. "I know you," Wrexham said, moving with his customary elegance, despite his size and relative age. "You are Christian of the Akehu, and you fight with 2 blades. Yet you come before me with only 1. I am disappointed." The Ain Fa smiled, a devilish grin. "It did not seem worth the effort," he said. "I have a very detailed file on you," Wrexham said, countering every slash and stab of the Ain Fa's blade. "And you are not known for showboating or wasting anyone's time. If you wanted to kill me, you would have done it by now. So let's get to the point, shall we?" Christian took a step back, moving nimbly in a circle around the courtyard. "The city is ours. Your regiment is the last holdout." "Your reputation precedes you," Wrexham said. "I will need assurances for my people's safety, and trust is in short supply in these times." Another figure descended from the rooftops, dropping to the sandy ground. This one Gina recognised immediately, as would anyone who lived in Brulia. It was Princess Davila, the daughter of Baltine, and the one who had paralysed half of Gina's face and one of her arms. The fireball flickered to life in Gina's hand, the heat almost unbearable. She could take out Christian or Davila, but not both. The princess was speaking. "You can trust him, or you can trust me. Captain Wrexham, our quarrel is not with you or the city guard. We must reach my father and put a stop to this for good." Nodding towards her, Wrexham put a closed fist to his chest. "Princess Davila, it warms my heart to see you alive and healthy." Christian pointed the tip of his blade toward Wrexham. "You have imprisoned many of us, executed many of us in public squares. You have crimes to answer for." "None of us have clean hands, Akehu," Wrexham snapped, failing to hide his disdain for the other man. "I will answer for my decisions, but the city comes first." He raised his own blade again. "Or we can continue our previous conversation." "Stop, both of you," Davila said. "Fighting each other benefits my father, helps the conspiracy at the heart of the Joint Council. We need to find a new way. Work together. We have a plan. Will you help?" She took a step towards Wrexham. Gina flung the fireball, sending it into the courtyard as a molten, flaming projectile, aimed at Davila's head. It was a trick, as was always the case with the Akehu, and she wouldn't let Wrexham come to harm. He was too committed to peace to recognise the imminent danger. A strong gale of wind buffeted her, knocking her from her feet, the fireball splashing harmlessly onto a large, dark barrier that had descended from above. Through the eruption of steam and molten slag hitting the floor, a deep, bellowing voice shouted, "Stop!" Emerging from the sulphurous cloud was an enormous Koth, wings fully extended, blocking the sunlight. The fireball had been aimed at Darrella, not the Koth, but they had intervened. Nobody moved. Rexon pointed to a city guard who had quietly knocked an arrow. "Hold," he ordered. Gina got back to her feet as the Koth slowly, deliberately retracted their wings. They were terrifying in size and stature, yet she thought she saw a sadness in their eyes. "Thank you, Lycasra," Darrella said, peering around from the back of the Koth. There was recognition in the princess's eyes. Gina? A flicker of realization as she noticed Gina's injuries. Despite her bloodied forehead and the dust and dirt in her clothes, Darrella still looked like a Brullian princess. Still looked like a woman who had stolen away Lola, had stolen Gina's face. Gina didn't know what was worse, the surrender or the look of pity on Darrella's face. "We will not fight for you," Rexon said, sheathing his sword, "but we will not try to stop you." London, Mid-Earth, 1980, July. "Do you wish to say anything? You are not obliged to say anything unless you wish to do so, but whatever you say will be taken down in writing and may be given in evidence." Chakraborty had wanted to say it, but D.I. Ford had pointed out that she was no longer a police officer in any official capacity. Lord Hutchinson's office was ornately decorated, its wood panelling setting it apart from the steel and glass of the rest of the Joint Council Tower. A large mahogany desk sat in the middle, stuffed bookcases behind it and a spherical drinks cabinet in the corner. Floor-to-ceiling glass provided a view out over the city, across the river to the streets where Clark was fighting. Leaning against the window was Lord Hutchinson in his pin-striped suit, one elbow on the glass. "I heard you in the building," he said, his clipped accent precise and cold. "I might have considered jumping, but none of these bloody windows open." He turned to them and gestured towards the cabinet. "Can I get either of you a drink?" "No? Just myself, then." He selected a bottle and began pouring. "I thought perhaps someone would come to kill me, you see. That's how it goes for deposed autocrats, is it not?" He chuckled to himself. "What an illustrious club to join, eh?" Chakraborty was taking in the room, the desk and its drawers, the filing cabinet, doors leading off to Hutchinson's secretary's office, and what looked like a storage room. She tried the handle. "We'll need you to unlock this." Hutchinson raised his eyebrows. "Well, you'll need a warrant." "Well, you'll need a search warrant." He looked between both of them, then smiled and waved a hand. "A joke. Here." He took a small key from his suit jacket and passed it to her. "This is all the Americans' fault, of course." Stalking around the office, looking in and under everything, Ford nodded towards the other man. "Why be so cooperative?" "The jig, as you say, is up," said Hutchinson, sipping at his drink. "It was from the moment Matheson lost control of his little pet. That was the loose thread that unravelled the whole enterprise." He indicated towards the window with his glass. Only half listening, Chakraborty filed through the drawers, which contained typical Joint Council business and nothing of relevance. Tipping out an especially overstuffed drawer, she found the back to be slightly shallower than expected, and tapping revealed a hollow sound. She wrenched it from the desk, revealing a compartment at the rear. Inside were more records of conversations and transactions, of cargo manifests and covert operations, invoices and minutes. Chakraborty's breath caught in her throat. This was it, the evidence they needed, all perfectly filed and organised by Hutchinson, and practically delivered with a bow. "The thing is, detectives, I'll be fine," Hutchinson said. "There's enough there to put the others away, my co-conspirators, if you will. I've been keeping all of that for a rainy day, in the event of something going wrong. I'd assumed the others would be doing the same, so it was to safeguard against them more than the long arm of the law. But it's a mountain of evidence, and I'm willing to be very cooperative indeed. You want to cut a deal?" Ford laughed, a belly chuckle that filled the room. "You toffs always think you can negotiate and bribe your way out of everything." "Well, invariably we can, my northern friend. That's why we're at the top of these towers and you're down in the mines. Think it over. But know this, Baltine will not go quietly. Maxwell is a coward and a fool, but is also unpredictable." Chakraborty was still marvelling at the treasure trove of evidence, that had fallen into their lap. They'd clearly chosen the weakest link in the conspiracy. Hutchinson could not be trusted, and the information could well be tainted, but it was a start. They had a case, something to prosecute. That would matter in the long run when the dust settled. They needed to be able to prove that the actions they'd taken had been justified and in the best interests of the country. "Best thing we ever did on Mid-Earth was stopping the American War of Independence before it started," Hutchinson said. "Bloody Max Earth Americans and their toys." He sighed, then pulled his seat nearer and dropped into it. "This will all be over by morning. Sure you don't care for a drink?" There was too much to process, with Hutchinson's records going back at least a decade. It would all have to be checked, filed, submitted, done properly so that the charges would stick. Even if they pulled it off and managed to dethrone Maxwell and the government, the most difficult and dangerous period would be afterwards, in the resulting vacuum. She pulled out a file that was marked with the year 1972. A name had caught her eye as she was flicking through. John Callahan. It was a typed meeting transcript, including subsequent actions to be taken. Locate empty flat on the estate. Find suitable Koth Patsy. Acquire etorphine from Borman. Identify Callahan and Clark's regular schedule. It was the kill order. John's death calmly itemised and filed away. The man who had ruined so many lives sat in his chair, smugly enjoying his drink. Passing the file to Ford, she considered the many terrible things they could do to the man. Instead, she smiled at him. No deals. Thanks for listening. You can leave a comment, find out more, subscribe and all that kind of stuff over at the newsletter at simonkjones.substack.com.